Hey, what's up? So, as you can kind of tell from the title and the thumbnail, yeah, I actually got my hands on Stadia for some reason. And so for the rest of this video, or at least most of the video, I should say, you're probably going to see gameplay of myself playing Tomb Raider Definitive Edition through Google Stadia. So, it's Stadia, the thing, I have it. Got it. Don't ask me how I got this. I didn't. If it means anything, I didn't really pay for it. Someone was kind enough to donate it, essentially. Although it is going back to the original owner as soon as I'm done with this video. So, you know, obviously it's not really a donation. It's more just like given to me so I can make something out of it. So that's what this is. And the controller is interesting. It kind of feels like a weird Frankenstein's monster of like an Xbox controller and like a PlayStation controller, but it doesn't feel as good in the hands. Something about it doesn't quite feel right. I'm not an expert in like the ergonomics of a controller, so like who am I to tell you? But it's interesting to say the least, but I do have one. I did play Tomb Raider Definitive Edition for about like maybe an hour or so just to try out how my internet would work with this, because if you don't know, Google Stadia was more or less a massive failure. But to give you guys the idea of exactly how the game looked, I'm going to put on some gameplay now of Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, and you tell me how it looks. So the game didn't play awful, but if you are one of the few people who did not know what Stadia was before Google discontinued it, essentially what it is it was a platform where you can play pretty much whatever game you wanted that was available on the service, primarily through streaming. So almost like you're streaming a movie on Netflix or HBO Max or something like that, but entirely playing a video game. Personally, I'm not a fan of it, but Google Stadia is not the only platform out there that exists that has this kind of service. Amazon has their own service called Luna, and Xbox does have Xbox xCloud, I believe is what it's called. I am not a fan of cloud streaming at all, so I don't know. It's just not something that really appeals to me, because consider that everyone's internet is very different from each other, never consistent. Like, it never stays exactly the same all throughout. There's always going to be dips and highs for your internet. So if you're in a really stressful situation or really action-packed situation that requires like very detailed inputs, streaming is going to be kind of an issue, considering that like your play experience is never going to be totally consistent. You know, it's never going to be totally stable in how exactly the game will run. I will say on my internet specifically, the Stadia seemed to work mostly fine. The latency for button input to the screen, like the actual character or Laura actually jumping and whatnot, wasn't actually too different. Like, it was actually relatively good enough where I can play the game, but there were like small moments where I can kind of tell that something was off. Maybe there was like an extra second of delay instead of the you know, what I'm used to on like a typical console controller. I think the most noticeable difference from playing any other console to playing on Stadia was the resolution. The resolution seemed to be all over the place for a lot of it. I don't know if you can really tell from the video, but in my experience on my own PC monitor, there were moments where the game was clearly like, you know, looked pretty good. Like, it was like 1080p. I could see things very clearly, looked fine. But there was also a lot of moments where it felt like it dropped a bit. Maybe not quite like standard quality. Like, it wasn't going sub HD, but it was clearly not 1080p anymore. Like, I wouldn't be able to tell you like exactly what resolution it was running at, but it was definitely not 1080p. And there was moments where I can tell that it was not running at the top resolution as it should be. So, like I said, internet is it's gonna fluctuate. It's not gonna stay in one consistent place for the most part. So Stadia was never going to be something that I felt would work. And you're probably wondering, like, why would I decide to try out Google Stadia after Google basically killed the service? And by the way, killed the service in such a way that like not even people who was releasing games on the platform even knew that that was going to happen, which to me seems kind of scummy. I don't know, maybe I feel like you should probably give a little bit of a heads up to any studios releasing games or working to release any games on your platform if you're gonna just, you know, off the service like immediately upon announcing its its cancellation. So that seemed kind of messed up to me. Like, it is what it is. There isn't really much you can do about it at the moment. But yeah, you might be wondering why I decided to try it out. And essentially, it was just because there was an opportunity for me to have access to the Stadia, to have access to something that I think we're gonna remember for a good while, because there was other failed streaming service type platforms other than the Stadia. Like, we had OnLive years back, and that was, I want to say it was a little bit ahead of the time almost. Like, not necessarily in terms of being successful, because even Stadia, you know, a platform that was essentially helmed by a massive corporation being Google, still couldn't quite get it right. You know, like, there wasn't really much there. You know, it wasn't a service that people were clearly not interested in. I just didn't see people willing to shell out maybe like $60 plus tax for a game that they have to only stream. That just didn't seem like a good idea to me. Stadia is not the first cloud service to really exist, and it definitely won't be the last. Consider that we still have Amazon Luna out there, and we still have Xbox X Cloud out there. But what I do think is the issue with cloud gaming is an issue that will be an issue for a very, very long time, as long as internet infrastructures aren't quite there for this sort of thing. And even then, I'm not sure gaming specifically as a platform is quite ever going to get to the point where cloud streaming is going to become like the main way of playing. Primarily because, like, you can do that with Netflix, because you could just press play on something, and the worst that could happen in your viewing experience is that it's slightly less quality, like maybe 4K to like 1080 or something like that, but you can still very much watch, you know, whatever show you're gonna watch, right? But in gaming, it's very different, because you can't control the game the same way when the internet is not where it needs to be. Like, it's going to directly affect how you control the game, and that is something that is very important in games like fighting games, hack and slashes, shooters, like a majority of genres. Cloud gaming doesn't seem like something that's going to really take off, although I do think cloud gaming could be a sort of accessory type of feature, something that you can do if you want to, but it's not the main selling point, which is pretty much why I'm, I guess, neutral on like how Xbox handles it, because it's kind of included with Xbox Game Pass, but it's not the main feature. Like, you could still, you know, download and install whatever game you want to play. Something like Google Stadia and Amazon Luna doesn't really do that all too much. It's primarily a streaming service, and that is, I think, an issue, because there's going to be a large majority of people who, even if they want to support it, they won't be able to, considering their internet situation. But as you can see from the gameplay, there isn't anything that immediately came off awful, but it's definitely not the definitive way to play this game. Google wanted to try something, and clearly it did not work out. It did not pan out the way they hoped. I would hope that they would discontinue it in a much more, I don't know, thoughtful manner, considering that a lot of studios kind of got fucked over by the whole canceling it without letting them know thing, you know? So maybe don't do that. If you're if any of your projects as a corporation ever doesn't pan out, like, maybe give a slight heads up to any studio who's supporting your platform. That's kind of it. My experience with the Stadia isn't positive, but it's not wholly negative either. Like, I don't, like, it's not like I played this thing and I was immediately just like, oh, this is fucking garbage. But despite me saying that, like, it wasn't positive. Like, I guess it was like, my internet isn't totally terrible, but it's still not something I would want to play. It's not like, I don't see myself playing this. Like, like, as soon as I got the footage for Tomb Raider, I was completely done, and I never wanted to touch this again. That's not a feeling you should ever have with any platform, I feel. But let me know how you guys feel about the Google Stadia. Do you wish it was successful in any way? Do you wish that, you know, maybe cloud gaming would become the future or something along those lines? Are you someone who feels that way, or is this just another piece of junk? But let me know in the comments down below how you guys feel, and until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.
Shifty, yeah, shifty, wanna be the #1 gamer, come and get me. It'd be dope if you subscribe, could you like the vid, please? Take your time, you don't gotta do it swiftly. Shifty, shifty. Wanna be the number one gamer, come and